lies with the man-made islands in the Spratlys. Some of these structures are just not very sound. While China has proven itself to be top-notch at dredging, often with wanton or scant regard for marine life and ecology, it hasn't been quite as good at building secure infrastructures built to last on its new islands. You see, the work that has gone into building the islands, while fast-paced, has been shoddy. Questions have arisen about the kind of cement used by China in the development of its project, which is thought not to be able to withstand the particularly abrasive conditions of the South China Sea. As Bloomberg reported, the kind of cement derived from sea sand is not very robust and might even cause buildings to collapse. China has used this kind of cement in building projects elsewhere, where it has also received criticism. But its use in the precarious climate of the sea represents an even more acute risk still. But it is possible that even if these projects had been soundly built, they would not have lasted long. It seems that China, amidst its aggressive policies, has chosen one enemy that it may simply be no match for: the force of nature. Simply put, the sea is eating away at China's islands. China's dredging has been characterized by a particular scant regard for the environment, by removing large chunks of flora and piling heaps of debris upon what remains. But the native mangroves, which China obliterated, operate as a kind of natural break, holding back the sea by absorbing tides and protecting the shores. Without that barrier, the islands are more exposed than normal to rising tides, which could in theory submerge the islands. Moreover, climate change threatens to undo the whole notion further. Rising seas are a threat to all islands, but especially low-lying, small islands without elevations into which the population could retreat as the coastline erodes. But China's man-made islands are simply too small and too flat for this to be any kind of possibility. Some Pacific islands have shored up their defense against the rising tides by building sea walls, structures designed to protect areas of human habitation from tides, waves, or tsunamis, and China hasn't. In addition, China's useless concrete risks speeding up the sinking of the islands. According to The Economist, the concrete used for land reclamation in the Spratlys has proven itself completely unfit for purpose, turning into sponge in the hostile climate of the sea. This makes the foundations of all that has been built upon them unreliable and risks failing to stem the rising waters. As a result, the islands are basically sliding into the sea, nature reclaiming what it gave up. Not only is this a source of embarrassment for China, but it will represent a rather significant waste of money that went into creating it in the first place. And if that weren't enough, the sea is continuing to rise, threatening to completely submerge China's upstart islands. China appears aware of this, and this is likely the reason why the islands don't appear to be particularly teeming with human life, while some of the military installations are rather limited, and its airports on the 3 militarized reefs show no sign of use for several years after they'd been built. And all this aside from the fact that China doesn't really have much experience in the building of structures designed to withstand the types of strong typhoons which can occur in the South China Sea. These typhoons are only likely to get more severe as global temperatures rise due to climate change, something which could simply pulverize the fragile structures on the islands if they took a direct hit. And if it is the case that if nature reclaims these islands, then all China's efforts will have come to a rather embarrassing failure. It stands worthy to mention that dredging and land reclamation doesn't come cheap, and although China doesn't release figures, it is thought that it spent upwards of $12 billion on its construction projects on one of the Spratlys, that's Fiery Cross Reef, alone. Thus, China's island creation could represent a kind of misadventure, proving costly both to its international prestige as well as to the exposed communities that it has placed there. America's role in the world's about to change after a divisive and highly contentious election season. Former reality star Donald Trump has been selected to reprise his role as US president, stepping into the role on January the 20th, 2025. Around the world, Trump's re-election has prompted a range of emotions in other nations, but two deep feelings most of all. Certainty that the world order is about to change in some fundamental ways, and uncertainty on just what sort of change will come next. Yet, if there's one single guarantee of the incoming Trump administration that world nations would be foolish not to take seriously, it's the one known as America First. In broad strokes, America First is exactly what it sounds like. A foreign policy that regards America's own interests as matters of highest importance and openly promises that in moments of disagreement, the needs of the rest of the world will have to take second place. But when we get specific about the meaning of America First, there's one admittedly old-timey, somewhat stuffed-up term that comes to mind: autarky, better known today as collective self-sufficiency. Look at the policies and priorities of America First, and the intention is clear. It's an initiative to make the United States as self-sufficient as it can be. But in a fully globalized world, with allies and adversaries alike reliant on the United States to fill a role as a global superpower, what does the world look like if America tries to go it alone? Anybody with even a limited awareness of America's 2024 election cycle has likely heard the words Project 2025 more than once. A sweeping policy proposal by the conservative think tank the Heritage Foundation, Project 2025 called for everything from partisan control over America's law enforcement and regulatory agencies to abolition of its Department of Education to mass deportation of immigrants and more. The document's relevance to a second Trump administration, its writer's degree of influence over Trump himself, and even the contents of the document are the subject of considerable debate in the US. But while America was wrapped up in consternation over Project 2025, its people largely missed another policy platform put forward by a group with quite possibly even greater influence over Trump 2.0, the America First Policy Institute, or AFPI. Much like Project 2025, the AFPI has deep ties with the people currently managing Team Trump. Its chairperson is American businesswoman and former pro wrestler, no, not kidding, Lindsey McMahon, currently co-chairs Trump's presidential transition team. Its president and CEO served on Policy Council during Trump's first term, and its vice chair is thought to be a frontrunner to lead American executive departments managing the economy. In addition to a series of domestic proposals, the AFPI and its leaders have proposed foreign policy positions that would radically alter the United States' relationship with the rest of the world. Those include sweeping trade tariffs leveraged against all foreign imports, but with particular attention to America's adversaries. They include stepping back from international organizations and backing away from current and potential future commitments to give aid to many of America's traditional allies. The policy platform's critics and some of its proponents describe it as openly isolationist. Trump's nominees to high-ranking positions at the time of writing echo these same views. People like Secretary of State nominee Marco Rubio, incoming National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Secretary of Defense nominee Pete Hegseth, very much among them. For the purposes of today's episode, it's not our intent to offer either support or critique to these or many other likely Trump policies, but what we will do is to take it on faith that when America's president advocated these same policies routinely on the campaign trail, he wasn't simply pretending to support them. In recalling his first term, Trump and his allies have praised his staggered withdrawals from the Middle East, his avoidance of American involvement in new foreign wars, his withdrawal from a nuclear deal with Iran, and his actions to make the United States more energy independent. During his re-election campaign, he's threatened to starkly limit US support toward the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, and he's been very open about his stance on global trade as a primarily harmful force that's against American interests. In broad sense, he advertises his America First approach as an isolationist, non-interventionalist, and economic protectionist force. And if we can editorialize a little bit here, to describe Trump's overall promise of a more ideal America, then it's a promise to build a nation that doesn't rely on global partners to stay afloat, that doesn't allow foreign companies to compromise American economic well-being, and that doesn't stick its neck out for somebody halfway around the world simply because that's what global superpowers are supposed to do. The idea that a nation would be self-sufficient is certainly not a new one in global politics. In some way, it's the dream. After all, what nation wouldn't want to have everything it needs right at its leaders' fingertips without having to trouble themselves with foreign rivals or the headache of international trade? The idea of national or society-wide self-sufficiency or autarky is a hallmark of societies trying to transform themselves, with little, if any, core differences based on what each one wants to transform itself into. During the 20th century, everybody from the German and Spanish fascists to the Soviet and Chinese communists to the World War I era American isolationists pushed to become as self-sufficient as possible. They wanted economies that could thrive despite being self-contained. They wanted means of production that were entirely under their own control, and they wanted to be free from the way that trade, defense, and other relationships with other countries provides those other countries with leverage. Of course, that sort of national self-sufficiency has always been hard to pull off, and in the 21st century, conventional wisdom holds that it doesn't make much sense as an overall objective. After all, the world relies on resources that most of the world can only get through trade. Copper, nickel, cobalt, gold, oil, things of that nature. The world can be a very lucrative place for exporter nations, filled with customers willing to pay a premium for what they've got. It can be a highly alluring thing for importer nations. After all, if everybody wants to see the benefits that come from accessing semiconductors or rubber, or the exceptionally tasty meats of the Iberian Peninsula, then what right does a government have to stand in its people's way? Information, money, raw materials, and processed goods flow around the world today as easily as water flows within the oceans. And that's certainly not to say that the globalized economy is some unimpeachable force. As the world shifts, as industrial capacity moves to new places, as agriculture becomes more or less financially feasible in certain spots, or as critical resources are exploited at higher rates, many communities across the world will feel more pain from the changes than they feel they benefit. Those people, when they live in places where they can directly elect leaders, will vote for leaders that they feel represent their interests and can make their lives better. It's not exactly rocket science, and in broad terms, it's exactly what happened in America this year. Trump's promises of a return to American manufacturing, agriculture, and other waning economic areas in the United States brought him a victory in the places where a shifting global order has caused genuine pain. But the trouble with the globalist world, once it's established in the first place, is that now we're all navigating the tides from within the same ship, and if that ship goes down, we're all going to go down with it. Alright, when we start to measure the global impact of a push for American self-sufficiency, it's best to begin with the United States itself. And because we here at Warfronts do remain a war channel above all else, we're going to spend the majority of our time discussing American autarky as it relates to global conflicts. Particularly, we're going to ask the question, how will a push for American self-sufficiency both help and hurt the United States? Now, in a discussion of war, we'll begin with the easy stuff, or at least the stuff that doesn't immediately involve exploding bombs or marching troops. We're talking about a trade war, a sort of confrontation that the incoming Trump administration appears more than happy to engage in. A core promise of the Trump campaign was that if re-elected, Trump and his allies would dramatically increase the scope and the intensity of tariffs on foreign goods entering the United States. Now, just to be clear, a tariff is a tax placed on goods as they enter a certain country, rather than being placed directly on a person purchasing those goods. For example, if an American restaurant imports a $50 bottle of whiskey with a 10% tariff on it, then they've got to pay another $5 extra to get that whiskey. The importer pays, not the foreign company that exports the given product. Trump has promised a flat tax on all goods entering the United States, with figures alternately given at 10 and sometimes 20% just as a baseline. Then, against certain countries or certain types of goods, those tariffs are intended to be even higher, an additional 60% tariff plus the baseline on all imported goods from China, as one example. So for the incoming Trump administration, tariffs are potentially a tool to collect wealth for the US government and to incentivize companies to get the goods they want from inside the US, thus creating further economic incentives for existing and new American companies to make more goods. It's a relatively straightforward premise, but tariffs also serve a second purpose in Trump's view of foreign policy, as a tool to reward good behavior and punish bad behavior by other world nations without anyone having to shoot guns or waste any of those expensive missiles. If a country acts in a way that's detrimental to the US, then by taking advantage of tariffs within the globalized economy, Trump can make it much more expensive for Americans to do business with that nation, thus depriving that nation of wealth that they were expecting to collect through exports. Conversely, if another world nation can prove to Trump that it's full of very good little boys and girls, they might be rewarded with a reduction in tariffs, thus allowing them to do more business and charge more favorable prices to US buyers. But here's the thing. For Trump to be able to make tariffs a major part of his foreign policy approach in this way, the tariffs have to be workable for the United States. That is to say, Trump can't win a trade war using tariffs if he bankrupts his own country before bankrupting somebody else's. It's pretty simple stuff. So the next question is, will this kind of tariff regime help the United States and hurt its adversaries, or vice versa, or perhaps something in the middle? Now, within the court of public opinion in the US, the jury's still out in that regard, but knowledgeable economists within the US and internationally suggest that the ultimate cost of those tariffs will fall onto the American consumer. And when it comes to trade wars, that's important for one critical reason. If indeed the tariff policy risks backfiring on Americans, then certain other countries, not all of them, but some, will be incentivized to take their chances and meet Trump in a trade war, betting that they can hold out longer than America can, rather than backing down. those same countries. If they come to believe that Trump and his allies can be baited into trade wars they might eventually lose, are incentivized to do their very best and make those trade wars happen, hoping that it might be America's undoing rather than anybody else's. But let's suppose, for the sake of argument, that the economists and the naysayers are wrong. Trump's tariff plan will impose real costs on America's adversaries, spare the American consumer and the American economy, and ultimately prove to be a sound foreign relations approach in the long term. And in that world, we turn to a second important question. Can the United States pivot its economy and become more self-sustaining in the long term? Could it even reach a point of economic self-sufficiency where one day it could treat international trade as a luxury to indulge in or withhold from other nations at no cost to itself either way? In some regards, it's feasible that the US could go self-sufficient to a much higher degree than it's been in the 21st century. The US processes immense natural resources from oil, natural gas, to booming agricultural lands, to ample copper and iron, to Iranian timber and more. In 2021, the US was estimated to be sitting on about $45 trillion worth of natural resources, including a number of resources that not many other countries have. The country has a history of large-scale manufacturing and certainly no shortage of communities that would like manufacturing jobs and other outsourced labor demand to return. Add some of America's most resource-rich close allies like Canada, Saudi Arabia, and Australia, and it could fulfill some of its leftover needs without ever engaging with nations that the US considers to be adversarial. But the trouble with that line of thinking is that it's not nearly that easy to pivot away from global trade. In order to build a newly expanded manufacturing sector, you've got to actually build the factories, you've got to build the required machinery, and you've got to have enough demand to actually make the things that those factories are supposed to produce. You might also have to coax Americans into jobs that, at least broadly, they don't really want to work. In Trump's America, you'll likely have to make do with the workers available in America's current employment environment, where just 4.1% of adult members of the workforce are currently looking for a job. You'll also have to stretch these new workers into industries where potential mass deportation of migrant workers, laborers that the US deeply relies on, could be just around the corner. This massive series of shifts would constitute an economic shock that even Trump's own inner circle have acknowledged. In late October, Elon Musk explained that Trump's broad economic and fiscal approach, quote, necessarily involves some temporary hardship, but it will ensure long-term prosperity. Yet other prominent voices suggest that the long-term prosperity that such an equation promises may not actually materialize. In a joint letter released just before America's elections, 23 Nobel Prize-winning economists warned together that the combination of tariffs, mass deportation, and other sweeping action will, quote, lead to higher prices, larger deficits, and greater inequality. Beyond that, there are some areas where it's simply not possible for the United States to go self-sufficient anytime soon, or perhaps ever. For example, the United States lacks substantial reserves of rare earth elements which are crucial to develop semiconductors, electric vehicles, and more. The same goes for minerals like manganese or tin, and attempts to start mining for elements like cobalt in the US have been woefully unsuccessful so far. In these realms, the US simply has to import or risk falling badly behind the rest of the world. So, judging by the potential impact on the United States itself, could the US go self-sufficient? Would it really make sense
Wow,
for
that's a
America
big
to
fucking
do that?
catfish.
Well, perhaps the right answer is simply that we're all about to find out, one way or the other. But the more complete answer is that although there can be no rendering of a final verdict until the process actually plays out, the early indicators seem to weigh toward the idea that this whole attempt to develop American self-sufficiency may not work out in America's favor. And if we accept that premise, then an America trying and failing to go self-sufficient will very quickly start to present national security risks to itself. A nation that's trying to wean itself off trade only to come back to the market may face harsher prices or more aggressive negotiation, while a nation that could be easily drawn into trade wars will find itself in trade wars designed to benefit its adversaries. And all this isn't to say that America could never achieve self-sufficiency, but getting there is a very painful process. And right now, in a highly resource-competitive global environment, there are no shortage of adversary nations that would jump on the opportunity to engage. But now, let's examine the other side of the coin. The rest of the world. What happens if the US suddenly decides to close up shop and substantially reduce its role in global trade? After all, the US is the world's second largest trading nation at present, second only to China, and it maintains trade relations with over 200 countries, international associations, and territories across the globe. For that to suddenly wink out of existence can't be good for anybody, right? Well, the truth of the matter is, perhaps unsurprisingly, that a number of world nations are dependent on the United States economically. Over 75% of all exports from both Canada and Mexico go to the United States, meaning that across-the-board changes to America's trading policy would have incredible ramifications there. Many of the United States' closest allies around the world rely on America to receive large shares of their exports, nearly 30% from Israel, 20% from Japan and Vietnam, 20% from the European Union, 17% from Taiwan, 16% from India, and nearly 15% from the UK. Those numbers may sound small, but when they're translated into billions upon billions of dollars, the situation very quickly becomes rather dire. As convenient as it might be to separate the two, America's defense relationships and its trade relationships are tightly interlinked, and the costs and benefits of that reality comprise a very long list in each direction. On the bright side, these are mutually beneficial relationships. As America and its allies get closer on defense, they'll probably get economically closer and vice versa. But when one sours, the other will as well. For the United States to prove to some of its most vital allies, Japan for example, or the UK or South Korea, that it's not a reliable trading partner, inherently forces those nations to make tough choices about whether to stay linked so tightly to America or reorientate themselves in a way that makes them less exposed to the rise or fall of the American economy. As trade relationships get more distant, defense relationships will no doubt follow behind, and as close allies begin drifting from the US, they may either choose to pursue policies that the US wouldn't agree with, or potentially even decide to warm their relationships with America's long-held adversaries. In a few places in particular, the results could be even more catastrophic. Take Mexico, for example, where several regions are partially or fully overtaken by cartel violence and the security situation is already precarious. Introduce a major economic crash brought on by American economic policy, popular discontent skyrockets as people lose their hard-earned savings, lose their jobs, and watch their prospects diminish. Powerful, popular discontent in a place like that can very quickly become fodder for new anti-American populist movements, or even the cartels themselves. Then there are all the nations that depend on America, a whole lot more than America depends on them. Take Haiti, for example, a place currently gripped in an unbelievably horrific crisis that somehow keeps finding ways to get worse. Items imported from the United States from Haiti make up just a fraction of 1% of all US imports, but they make up a full 80% of all Haitian exports. Most nations in Latin America and the Caribbean rely on the US to take at least a third of all their exports, and the shock to the system that the US can deliver them is difficult to put into words. Much of Latin America is already destabilized, at least to some degree, and nations that aren't destabilized already certainly would be if forced to weather an economic crash of that scale. On the one hand, such a crisis would likely send so many desperate people toward America's southern border that it would make the country's current border crisis look like child's play. On the other, it would create both an economic and political vacuum across Latin America, where powerful world nations with booming economies could step in and fill the void. And now let's talk about those sorts of world nations, particularly China. It's a cornerstone of the incoming Trump administration's foreign policy approach to pivot fully toward China as the preeminent global adversary to the United States. But the relationship between the two nations is highly complex. In 2023, the US-China trade relationship was valued at well over $500 billion, something that would be a substantial hit to both nations if it was done away with. But for China, that potential hardship could be compensated or even outweighed by the potential geopolitical benefits that come from a sweeping American push toward economic self-sufficiency. Take the Latin America example we just mentioned. 10 or 20% general tariff plus bigger tariffs against Mexico and US adversaries like Nicaragua and Venezuela proved to be enough to send much of the Latin American economy into a tailspin. China, with the economic power and leverage to be able to solve that problem, comes in and bails out a large portion of Latin America. Perhaps the United States gets the short-term wins that come from placing more money into America's own pockets, but it's China that gets to grow its long-term relationships all up and down the American supercontinent with nations that are now embittered to the US in a way they never had been before. In fact, some experts in the economic world suggest that sweeping tariffs, even directly levied against China, could come back to benefit China in the long run. China's economic growth has been sluggish in recent years, not sluggish by international standards, but certainly when compared to China in previous decades, where incredible growth figures were just rather routine. Youth unemployment's at an all-time high, the country's property market has crashed, and China has overspent in areas related to warfare while sacrificing other areas of its economy. In its current state, China is in need of a major economic overhaul and doesn't seem enthusiastic about making such a thing happen. But counterintuitive as it may seem, a sweeping tariff regime and a resulting trade war with the US is not something that could bring the Chinese economy tumbling down. Instead, a growing number of theorists have argued that such a trade war could galvanize China's economy, forcing it to take sweeping, unilateral action and pushing it through a transition that will undoubtedly suck for a little while, but will probably leave China better off. Remember that quote from Elon Musk a little bit ago that America's tariff and deportation scheme, quote, necessarily involves some temporary hardship but will ensure long-term prosperity? Well, that might end up being true, but it's an open question whether it would be true for America or America's foremost adversary. Internally, China would be forced to stimulate domestic consumption, creating rising demand for goods within China itself and then pivoting its economy to serve those needs. And internationally, China is poised with the money, the diplomatic ties, and the pre-existing trade relationships to fill a vacuum left by diminished US trade relations in a way that no other country on Earth would have any hope of doing. Even in a hypothetical world where the trading actions of the US have little to no impact on its defense relationships, the idea that a push for American autarky is worthwhile doesn't really hold up to scrutiny. But this isn't a hypothetical world, and after decades of tight and intentional interconnection between trade and defense, a massive economic shift from the United States will have massive ramifications for both America's standing in the world and its relationship with current allies and current adversaries alike. The trouble with isolationism, be it economic or diplomatic, is that once you've done it, you're isolated. In today's world, the number of nations that actively choose to deglobalize and isolate themselves is vanishingly small. And after decades as the world's preeminent superpower, the United States...
I don't propose that we stay out of the world stage or the world scale or be friends with everybody or any of that stuff, right? I don't propose that we don't do that. I'm proposing that we don't give other people money so they can do war. Is that simple enough? And I don't want any foreign entanglements, and I don't want to go to war with other people. Like, I mean, that's, you know, one of the things that we enjoy, you know. I came here to look for bait. This key, it was better without it. This key is sticking so fucking badly for some reason. This keyboard borked. It like broke. It's got some kind of malfunction. Ooh. Oops. Well, yeah, that's one way to do it. Wait, that's a fishing chest. Oh my god. Well. Okay.
States has more to lose by isolating than almost anybody else. And what it loses. Every so often, the world witnesses a geopolitical stunner that makes the bizarre look positively tame by comparison. It's been a wild week around the world. Aleppo just fell to a rebel alliance. Georgia is on the brink of a revolution. The vice president of the Philippines says she's hired a contract killer to assassinate her own boss, and more. In fact, it's been the kind of week that makes you wonder if We Didn't Start the Fire came about 3.5 decades too early. But the news that came out of South Korea on Tuesday, December the 3rd, put it all to shame, and then some. On that day, the democratically elected president of a wealthy, stable nation that's widely hailed as a model for representative democracy around the world decided to declare martial law. His reasons were hazy, his late-night announcement was a wild choice to make, and his powerful opposition had the means to immediately strike it down. But he did it anyway, and for 6 very confusing hours, the nation of South Korea was thrust into the strangest sort of turmoil. This is the how and the why of South Korea's sudden brush with martial law and the way that the nation's crisis ended as abruptly as it began. On the scale of late-night public service announcements, it was the surprise broadcast from hell. In the late hours of the night, local time, South Korea, it was long after children had gone to bed and the joke of traffic had disappeared from all but the busiest city avenues. In the capital city of Seoul, however, President Yoon Suk-yeol straightened his dark red necktie, cleared his throat, and began to read out a statement that should have changed his nation forever. Yoon's statement was a unique one, to say the least, and we'll be diving into it shortly. But to understand the main thrust of what he was trying to say, we'll defer to the military decree that he was explaining to his nation. That military decree established rule by martial law, the replacement of a nation's civilian government, in this case South Korea's, by military rule, and the suspension of civilian law in favor of military power. Said the military, quote, in order to protect liberal democracy from the threat of overthrowing the regime of the Republic of Korea by anti-state forces active within the Republic of Korea and to protect the safety of the people, the following is hereby declared throughout the Republic of Korea as of 2300 on December the 3rd, 2024. The quote ends. The following portion of the declaration was straightforward, albeit stunning. At 2300 hours, all political rallies, associations, parties and demonstrations would be banned. All attempts to, quote, overthrow the liberal democratic system and any fake news, public opinion manipulation and false propaganda were banned. The media was under control of the military, effective immediately. All strikes and work stoppages were ended, effective immediately. South Korea's thousands of striking doctors were compelled to return to work, effective immediately. Those who didn't comply could be detained without a warrant and would be punished under martial law.
What?
He promised to his people in his own address, quote, I will rebuild and protect South Korea from ruin and despair through martial law. After he concluded his time over South Korea's airwaves, the military moved into action. Key commanders met with the leader of the South Korean armed forces, while military troops and police officers descended on the National Assembly to prevent the entry of lawmakers and protesters. The leader of South Korea's opposition, 2022 presidential nominee Lee Jae-myung, went live online and urged citizens to meet him at the country's National Assembly. Lee condemns the declaration of martial law and offered, quote, President Yoon Suk-yeol has betrayed the people. From this moment on, Mr. Yoon is no longer the president of South Korea, end quote. Lee urged the military not to take up arms as ordered in a request that a range of opposition lawmakers supported in force. The leader of Yoon's own political party joined in on the condemnations, quoting in part, "The people will block the president's anti-constitutional step. The military must be on the side of the public in any case. Let's resolutely oppose it." Soon, far larger crowds were massing outside the National Assembly, and with helicopters buzzing overhead, live television feeds depicted citizens and soldiers shoving for dominance at the gates. Members of the country's National Assembly began to gather in force after having snuck past barriers, climbed over fences, and convinced the military to allow them into their chambers, and before long the Assembly was working toward a resolution to demand the end of martial law, effective immediately. Alright, so before we get into what happened next, we've got to give a little bit of background because, as we trust you've already noticed, this entire saga has been really, really strange. Now, for any people on Earth, the imposition of martial law would come as a major shock, especially if it's declared seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of the night by a disgruntled president with an unclear set of grievances. But in South Korea specifically, martial law is a matter of deep and foreboding historical significance. The last time martial law was declared in South Korea was also the most significant, 44 years, about 6 months ago, in May of 1980. It was a very difficult time for South Korea. The country's president and dictator of 18 years, former General Park Chung-hee, had just been assassinated, and a new general, Chun Do-hwan, had staged a coup in response. Under Chun's martial law, dissidents were rounded up, schools were shut down, and police killed at least 165 people amidst protests in the city of Gwangju. Chun the station.
194 rawhide, kind of uncommon, but okay.
President's choice is no less stunning.
And that damn fish.
Offered far more specific insight around the threats that Yoon himself had perceived. Not a violent domestic uprising, not an act of aggression by North Korea, but his own political opposition. He accused opposition lawmakers of allying with the North, calling his perceived enemies, quote, "despicable pro-North Korean anti-state forces that are plundering the freedom and happiness of our people." None of those enemies were named specifically, although he's levied blame in the past against similar forces obstructing his political goals. Yoon accused those same enemies of, quote, plotting rebellion, and claimed that he imposed martial law in a bid to safeguard South Korea's constitutional government, having had no choice but to do so. Specifically, he pointed to what he described as the threat posed by
large frogfish.
It
was only 4 pounds, though.
prosecutors and reject Yoon's proposed government budget. Quoting Yoon here, "Our parliament has become a den for criminals. It has paralyzed the administrative and legal system by ramming through legislations and is attempting to overthrow our democratic system." End quote. A couple of items didn't get specific mention from Yoon, but one in particular was likely on his mind: the opposition's push for a special investigation into fraud allegations against Yoon's own wife. The broader problem for Yoon, however, doesn't actually appear to be a North Korea-sponsored grand conspiracy against him, but the simple reality of his own profound unpopularity. Yoon has been hovering at about a 20% approval rating in his country for months, and very recently performed the rare feat of governance of slipping below that threshold outright. When he was elected, he squeaked to victory with a margin under 1% of the vote, and today 70% of South Koreans say they disapprove of the job Yoon is doing as president. Meanwhile, he's been beleaguered by a national opposition that's unwilling to work with him, including on key issues that he highlighted in his speech to South Korea. Those issues include the impeachment of a number of Yoon's political allies, alleged judicial intimidation, a push for budget cuts, restrictions on funding for military officer salaries, and more. South Korea has been paralyzed by mass strikes among doctors, gripped by a deeply polarizing debate over feminism and anti-feminism, and caught in the economic doldrums of Yoon's attempt to become a global leader in the arms export industry. Making matters worse, it's not just Yoon, but his whole party that's lost its mandate. In April, his party suffered devastating losses in parliamentary elections, adding to the opposition's power and influence over the workings of the national government. At the very least, Yoon choosing to solve his problems via martial law was a decision to embrace the nuclear option. Some analysts, however, have gone even further, referring to Yoon's move as nothing short of a self-coup. That particular sort of coup, also referred to as an auto-coup, is a political action where a legally elected leader takes illegal, unilateral action to stay in power, perhaps invalidating the constitution, perhaps dissolving the legislature, or perhaps even declaring martial law. As regional expert James Palmer put it, writing for Foreign Policy, if troops had obeyed Yoon, the crisis could have spiraled, including confrontations between the army and the public. Instead, as we're about to describe, South Korea dodged a bullet. Quoting Palmer again, Yoon's self-coup has ended in a humiliating failure. Flashback to the tensions inside and outside the National Assembly, and by this point things were getting dire. Still hashing out business in the pre-dawn hours, bleary-eyed legislators were hard at work trying to claim the legal high ground in their new wrestling match with the president, as the throngs of incensed protesters had spread all throughout Seoul and many of South Korea's other cities. But the National Assembly was about to use a weapon that President Yoon had either forgotten or really underestimated in his pre-martial law planning. In South Korea, the National Assembly can force the president to lift a declaration of martial law, and in South Korea, the National Assembly is the place where Yoon Suk-yeol's political opponents are at their strongest. The sequence of events that came next made it clear that one of two things had happened. Either President Yoon had committed a grave mistake with absolutely zero forethought, or otherwise he had made an extremely bizarre play with true goals that must have been a world away from what they outwardly seemed to be. Either way, the South Korean National Assembly's response was the same. With the option to legally mandate Yoon to lift martial law immediately, whether he liked it or not, the National Assembly chose to do precisely that. A mere 5 hours after his surprise declaration, Yoon conceded defeat, but not before protesters had begun calling en masse for his arrest, not before the country's most confrontational labor group had called for a mass strike, and not before calls registered from across South Korea's political sphere, and even Yoon's own party, for his resignation. Police and military withdrew from the National Assembly, most protesters peacefully trickled out of the area, and the entire event resolved without further incident. But by the time South Korea's crisis had finished, the sun was just beginning to rise, with a very, very long day of reckoning awaiting both President Yoon and those who stood by his side. Impeachment speculation was well underway by breakfast, with Yoon facing a high likelihood that enough of his 108 parliamentarians in the 300-seat assembly might defect that a two-thirds majority could do the job. In a party-wide statement, South Korea's opposition indicated that impeachment proceedings would begin immediately unless Yoon chose to resign. At the time of writing, that motion to impeach has been filed. Yoon's chief of staff, his policy chief, and his national security advisor handed in their resignations, while the Secretary General of the National Assembly vowed to hold the military accountable for its role in the upheaval. Details also emerged regarding a group of nearly 300 militia personnel who had stormed and broken into the National Assembly and had apparently tried.
Why are
to
they always
arrest the leader of
storming
South Korea's
someplace?
opposition, the leader of the ruling party and the Speaker of the Assembly.
Can't they, like,
To call off the
chill
declaration of martial law.
someplace?
Quoting from the chief spokesman of the South Korean opposition, such actions constitute a coup d'etat and a plot to overthrow the government. In all likelihood, Yoon will be impeached in the coming days, assuming that he doesn't turn tail and leave the government first. At the latest, that vote is expected to be held on Saturday the 7th. The leader of Yoon's own party has called for the entire cabinet to resign, along with the immediate firing of Yoon's defense minister. Notably, there are exceptionally few people coming to Yoon's defense, a rather unsurprising outcome seeing as he's now the political version of a dead man walking. South Korea's volatile stock market is in the process of being stabilized. South Korea's allies are falling in behind the nation's democratic process, and the people of South Korea appear entirely disinterested in sticking up for a president they already couldn't stand. If Yoon either resigns or is removed, the country's prime minister will assume his role for 60 days or less. Within that 60-day period, South Korea will choose a new leader. For now, though, it's time for both South Korea and the entire rest of the world to sit back and take in the sheer strangeness of what just happened. The leader of a strong, wealthy democracy just declared martial law, kicked off a retaliatory protest movement, possibly tried a self-coup, got legislatively outfoxed and gave up, all before sunrise on what was meant to be just another Tuesday. It's pretty wild stuff, isn't it? Thanks for watching.
It was good.
Something fascinating is arising out of the barren deserts of Saudi Arabia. In early 2021, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and de facto ruler of the country, Mohammed bin Salman,
Real life lore. Why Saudi Arabia's $2 trillion city is failing. Thank you, real life lore. I've never heard of him before.
or MBS for short, revealed a project to the world that he called The Line. a linear city of gargantuan proportions that the Saudi kingdom would begin constructing in the remote northwestern corner of their country. The proposal would be built out in segments over a series of decades, and in its final form, the line is envisioned as consisting of 2 twin skyscrapers, each 5 meters tall, separated by a width of 200 meters, and running continually for a whopping 170 kilometers across the arid desert landscape, enclosing an open atrium between the 2 skyscrapers on the floor like a super long, fully enclosed walled city. To put the sheer scale of the ambition of this project into perspective, the height of each of the line's twin skyscrapers will be similar to the heights of some of the world's already tallest existing buildings, like the One World Trade Center in the Central Park Tower in New York or the Willits Tower in Chicago. But unlike any of those pre-existing buildings, each of the line's skyscrapers will run at about this height for 170 kilometers, about the same distance as New York City is to Wilmington, Delaware, or about the same length as the entire width of Connecticut from end to end, east to west, or about the same distance as Los Angeles is from San Diego, or for a European perspective, about the same distance as London is from Birmingham. Once it's completed, the Saudi government claims that the line will eventually be home to 9 million people, more than the population of New York City, and all contained within a supposedly super efficient floor space of just 34 square kilometers, which seems small in terms of land, but is massive in terms of floor space within a building, because that's 29% more floor space than every single building in all 5 boroughs of New York City combined. And unlike New York City, or really any other city in the world today, the line has been advertised as being a completely car-free environment without any roads at all, where everyone living inside will be no more than a 5-minute walk from anything they would need or want on a daily basis. To get from one part of the line's 170-kilometer length to another, transportation for people and freight will be performed by a super-fast underground train running beneath the line.
Super-fast underground train.
Traversing the entire 170-kilometer length in as little as just 20 minutes. While the entire
200 miles in 20 minutes.
Completely on green renewable energy with
I guess.
zero emissions. And then on top of all of that, the line has been further advertised as having flying robot taxis that'll whisk people away between destinations. Robotic house
flying robot taxis,
of Jurassic Park, an artificial moon, and a constant 24-hour surveillance system controlled by ubiquitous artificial intelligence. It has been advertised as nothing less than a complete revolution in urban design and the human living experience for the 21st century, while in reality, it is rapidly becoming one of humanity's greatest unmitigated disasters.
Oh no!
Since it was unveiled in 2021,
why do they do this?
The line has actually transformed into the single largest ongoing construction project happening anywhere on the planet, and it's likely already become one of, if not the largest construction projects in human history. The Saudi kingdom has gathered together an army of excavators, trucks, and workers that are currently all hard at work, carving out millions of cubic meters worth of
that
sand
was a big
across
one.
the desert,
40
where the line's
pounds.
foundation is expected to eventually be laid. All as MBS has compared the project's scope to the Egyptian pyramids and referred to it as a civilizational revolution. But as it's turned out,
like the
even for a
pyramids.
kingdom that's as fabulously wealthy and powerful as Saudi Arabia, fully
Fabulously
accomplishing a project
wealthy.
of this magnitude and ambition is still probably just a bit too much to manage. The projected cost for finishing the line's total length of 170 kilometers has ballooned in price more than 10 times over again, from its initial projection of only $200 billion when it was revealed
Only
back in
200
2021
billion.
to current estimates from employees on the project today in 2024 of at least $2 trillion. And to put that price tag into perspective, that's roughly twice the size of Saudi Arabia's entire nominal GDP. And it's pretty comparable to the total annual nominal GDP of Brazil, a nation of more than 215 million people. And even then, the $2 trillion price tag circulating around today is widely believed to still be a massive underestimation.
It's
by
Ice
several
Town.
independent analysts.
They made fun of this on Parks and Rec, like you're the mayor of Icetown, you're the mayor of Icetown, you're the worst politician out there, and like it was this hilarious like Ben, one of the guys in the office, who ends up marrying Leslie Knope. He's like, they made fun of him being the mayor of Icetown because when he was 15 he was like this prodigy like Elon Musk, and he was supposed to have all this money and be successful in all this, and so he decides to build Icetown, which is like the world's biggest ice rink or something like that in his small town in Minnesota. and it like bankrupted the town, and the entire town hates him, and he can't go back home because he's the mayor of Icetown. Everybody hates his guts there and all this. And it's funny, but this happens with politics all the time. Like politicians who fail horribly, and they have this huge like revolutionary 100-year-old dream or something that's going to take 100 years to reach or something, and then they just bankrupt the town or the country or whatever it is, trying to make some fucking pyramids of Giza or some fucking stupid wall, build that wall thing that Trump did, or the Great Wall of China. They're always trying to do this crazy stuff with like stone and massive amounts of land. Like you can eat stone, or you can like live off of the proceeds that like a big giant building's gonna make you. Like partying inside the building is gonna cause this like economic fucking windfall or something like that. But no, it's a building. Buildings don't really make you money. Giant islands and like, what was the last one about? Giant man-made islands. China's making man-made islands that are like sinking into the ground because they're like so expensive and crappy. And like it's kind of funny, and why do you guys need to do this if you just made sure everybody could eat and everybody got a good education and the rent was acceptable and there wasn't school shootings and stuff? Like if you just were like normal politicians, we don't need you to, well, I mean, occasionally it's appropriate, like going to space and stuff like that, because that benefits everybody. But it's very seldom like that. It's almost never seldom like that, where you can just easily, universally agree that we need to go to space. It's very seldom like that. Usually it's more like, oh, this guy doesn't follow my God, so I have to kill him. I hate to say it, but that's like literally 9/10 of the attitudes of most of the fucking countries in the world. And so that guy doesn't worship my God, so fuck him, I want to kill him. That, like, literally, even Britain and America sometimes falls that way. It's kind of insane. And so like, yeah, and so we can all agree on going to space, but but I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm not sure they're capable of making a space shuttle, really, or we would be out in space a lot more. I'm not sure they can make these giant things that they dream of making. It's sort of nuts. I don't know if we were meant to maybe bite off more than that. It's sort of weird. Were we never meant to leave the planet, really? Because we're just, I don't know. We build giant sinkable islands instead of like taking care of our people. I don't know. 53-pound large swordfish. Ooh, yeah, that's a nice swordfish right there. Happy. And so now we have to put on all this stupid ass gear, which is so stupid. You took off my entire set. You're so dumb. This is a bound item. Oh yeah, okay. There's the set. Oh no, I don't have my heart gem rune or whatever the fuck it is. Yeah, that thing. Okay, fishing. This is, I want to say, this is Maine, right? Save. Import equipped items. Yes, that's good. And then in slot 1 we have 100 potions, 100 regions, oak flesh potions that I never seem to ever use for some reason. I don't know. And I think I'll switch out now for like these things and those things. No. Yeah, that thing and that thing, right? Yeah, shouldn't I have more of these? Did I put all of my potions away? Oh yeah, I do have more of these here. So more of these, right? Yeah, and then I can burn these things cheap. They're cheap, right? Yeah. Blah, blah. Cool. Okay, talk to Perenelle Lenoir, which is like over there.
Announced in January of 2021, Saudi officials very optimistically claimed that the line's first residents of the 9 million total who would eventually call it home would begin moving into the structure by the first quarter of 2024, while they even further claimed that the first 16 kilometers of the line's total length would also be completed, and a whopping 1.5 million residents would all be moved into it just by the end of the decade in 2030, as work continued on building out the rest of the line's form in a modular process over the span of decades afterwards to the final end goal of 170 kilometers and 9 million people. But then, just a couple of months ago in April of 2024, the kingdom quietly released an update that significantly cut back on its initial optimistic ambitions for the line, with sources involved in the project's construction alleging to Bloomberg that the Saudi government now currently only plans for about 2.4 kilometers of the line's length to actually be completed by 2030 instead. A huge 85% reduction in the initial development target that had been set for that, while they also only expect that fewer than 300,000 residents will be living in the line by then. An 80% reduction in their initial target residents by 2030 as well. Despite these setbacks, however, Saudi government officials and the line's representatives continue to insist that the line is a long-term, multi-decade commitment of the kingdom that will continue being built out across the 21st century, all the way until the final version of 170 kilometers and 9 million residents is accomplished. It'll simply take them longer than they initially expected to get there, they say. But in only the first 4 years of the project's development, it has already been plagued by almost countless engineering, management, and financial mishaps that have substantially delayed its progress already. While many other people involved with the project and countless independent observers and analysts expect that the project is a completely unrealistic fever dream that has no possible chance of success at ever actually becoming a reality. And in order to understand the true scale of the line's
sounds about right, yeah. Why do you guys do this? Fix our problems. You're so stupid. Why do you guys spend this much money? It's so stupid. Just fix our problems.
The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia himself, Mohammed bin Salman,
unsuppress the women. Reach some kind of cultural agreement about religion. Like, work with the UN, fix the rent, make sure that the people in the third world countries and stuff can get meds and food and antibiotics and water and all this other stuff. And like, but no, you build these giant fucking sinking islands and like pyramids of Giza so you can be like, remember me. But and we remember how stupid you are. Build a wall, kick them out. And it's like, yeah, we remember how stupid that was when you proposed that. I remember how stupid that was. Yeah, I remember build the wall. Yeah, I remember how stupid that was when you proposed that. I remember how stupid it is. We'll definitely remember that part of it. I know you think, remember me, I'll be the politician that got something done for once and built something big. Remember me. Yeah, we remember how stupid you are.
MBS's father is the current reigning king of Saudi Arabia, King Salman. Salman himself is one of more than 100 children that were produced by Saudi Arabia's original founder and the country's first king, Ibn Saud. Ever since Ibn Saud's death in 1953, the Saudi kingdom has been continually ruled as one of the world's final remaining hereditary absolute monarchies by 6 of Ibn Saud's own direct sons. King Salman himself is among Ibn Saud's youngest surviving children today, who was born in 1935 when his father was already 60, while Salman himself has 13 of his own children. King Salman is also turning 89 years old this year, and so as the generation of Saudi kings made up exclusively of Ibn Saud's own direct sons began aging out, it became clear in the 2010s that the next generation of
was this all with the same woman? His queen gave him 13 women? I'm not so sure.
Would eventually have to be pulled from the pool of Ibn Saud's grandchildren next. King Salman is
what country is harem culture? Is that Saudi Arabia? I can't remember. I don't want to label them as something that they aren't, right? So where does harem culture? Where is harem culture, right? Yeah, where is harem culture, right? Harem culture exists in the Middle East and Mediterranean region, as well as in the courts of It's Egypt, Persia, and Assyria, as well as pre-Islamic ones. But yeah, I'm fairly sure that the kings, they keep they won't even let the women show their faces or anything like that, unless there's unless there's 20 of them all concubine to this king or whatever. At which point, yeah, well, even then, the women still can't show their face, but it's just weird. It's like if they're not sexual slaves, essentially, in a harem, you hide their faces. Or, I mean, even then, you do it. It's sort of weird. It's like, I don't know. Now, do I judge this? No, it's not my culture. What the fuck do I know about it? It's not my culture. I'm just saying, like, I believe this is the harem culture, right? I'm saying Saudi Arabia is basically like the harem culture. I believe it, at least up at the tip top.
Ascended to the kingdom's throne in 2015.
Yeah, we're talking about kings here. We're talking about the habits of kings. We're not talking about the habits of the people. We're talking about the habits of the kings of the Middle East. They like harems. That's harem culture. You go to see them, and they'll have, like, their entire household is there. From their, like, 10 daughters to their 10 wives, and they're all there to serve men, and that's it. That's what's expected of them, and that's what they want, I think. It is sort of weird. I mean, it's okay, but it seems like a suppressed culture to me. But, I mean, do I judge it? No, it's not my culture. It's fine. Let them be what they do. I don't know. I don't know things about being kings in a harem culture. I don't know shit about that, so I stay the fuck out of it.
Upon the death of his older brother Abdullah at the age of 90, and Salman quickly appointed his young 7th son, Mohammed bin Salman, as the acting deputy crown prince and the kingdom's defense minister. Within only 2 years from then, MBS managed to outmaneuver everybody else in the Saudi court and rapidly consolidated his own power, to the point where he managed to secure the position of Saudi Arabia's sole crown prince and heir apparent to the throne by 2017. By which point, he was already widely viewed as the kingdom's de facto ruler at the young age of only 32 years old. He was later appointed by his father as the kingdom's acting prime minister, and he will inevitably succeed his nearly 90-year-old father as the nation's next king after he eventually passes. MBS is a young man who effectively rules a kingdom as its absolute monarch appointed by God himself, like Louis XIV did in France, but in the 21st century rather than in the 17th century.
Yeah, but in the 21st century.
In Saudi Arabia today.
He said it right. Like Louis the XIV, right? Like Louis the XIV in France, except in the 21st century. That's the problem here. It's like, yeah, that's one thing when you storm the Bastille for this stuff. Let them eat cake. That's okay in the 1700s when we're too dumb to know any better. But this guy's doing this in the 21st century, and it sucks sort of. A little bit. It sucks sort of.
Within a country of 37 million people, an annual nominal GDP of more than 1.1 trillion US dollars that is similarly sized to Turkey or the Netherlands.
Wow.
That controls the 2nd largest known reserves of oil and the 6th largest known reserves of natural gas on the
They have their
planet.
finger on
And
the
a
oil
sovereign wealth
pipeline.
fund
They're
with
like
assets of more
they're
than
the main
$700
source of
billion.
oil. That's funny.
This is more absolute power than anything even Louis
Yeah, the
XIV
desert has
could have
shale.
possibly conceived of during his rule in France. The word of MBS is literally the law within this kingdom, and whatever he wants to do
Yeah, I
is
would
what the
say
entire
so.
kingdom will end up doing. And as it's turned out, MBS has been a rather bold leader who's made several controversial decisions that have damaged both his own personal reputation as well as his country's reputation on the world stage. As the kingdom's defense minister, MBS was the architect of the Saudi military intervention into Yemen that began in 2015, and quickly transformed into a costly and bloody quagmire that directly killed thousands of Yemeni civilians and Saudi soldiers that heavily contributed to Yemen's collapse into what has often been described as being among the 21st century's most horrible humanitarian catastrophes. He further led Saudi Arabia into launching a total land, sea, and air blockade of neighboring Qatar in 2017 that lasted for years until 2021 that ultimately ended in another Saudi failure. And he boldly ordered the kidnapping of the Prime Minister of Lebanon in 2017 and had his security
Dear
forces
God,
forcibly
why?
temporarily resigning from his
Why?
office. And on top of MBS's decisions in an absolute monarchy that have affected its reputation, Saudi Arabia is also a country that is highly overdependent on its massive oil resources for its current level of prosperity. Oil alone still accounts for roughly 40% of the kingdom's entire economy, in addition to about 87% of the Saudi government's operating budget revenue, and a whopping 90% of the country's total export earnings. Saudi Arabia is dominated by oil, and in a changing 21st century world where concerns about climate change and moving on from oil to renewable energy are ever increasingly growing trends, there is a cause for concern in the kingdom to diversify its economy away from its presently huge oil dependency to better safeguard its future. So, naturally, after he assumed de facto power in the kingdom, MBS moved quickly to address this concern about diversifying Saudi Arabia's economy away from oil, and he believed that the best way to do that was by encouraging the development of a brand new kind of tourism in the country. As the location of the two holiest sites in all of Islam in Mecca and Medina, Saudi Arabia
a new shopping mall city.
A large number of religious tourists who came from the rest of the Islamic world for their Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. But hardly any non-Muslims ever visited Saudi Arabia for any reason from the Western world unless they were involved in the oil or defense industries. MBS looked to the huge success of the neighboring United Arab Emirates in encouraging their own tourism industry from scratch to diversify their own economy away from oil, with well-known flashy megaprojects like the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, the Burj Al Arab, one of the most well-known and opulently luxurious hotels in the world, and Western-branded amusement parks like Ferrari World that includes the
Ferrari World,
Formula Rossa. Even with a well-publicized
Formula Rossa
in the country, like the World Islands project.
Oh my God! Let's go look at Formula Rossa. What? Oh my God! I thought I'd lived, but no, I have to go do this. I think Formula Rossa. We have to go do Formula Rossa before I die. Oh my God! It's Formula Rossa. What? This thing goes 100 miles an hour. This'll G-force you you'll black out. Why? Humans can't handle this. Most humans can't handle this. If an old granny goes on this, she's gonna die. Why would you make this? This is so stupid. Most people need training to handle something like this. This is so dumb. Why did you build this? I mean, I love it. I really want to ride this. I really want to ride this. But I swear to God, they probably make you see a doctor before you can even get on it. Like, what? Why did you build this? With like, I mean, do you need to show the world? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Oh my God, look how big it is. That's what she said. Oh my God, look at the size of this fucking stadium. It's a stadium built for a roller coaster. These fucking idiots. This is what you do instead of taking care of your fucking people. You're fucking dumb. You're so dumb. We're dumb. We do dumb things like this too. You remember when I tripped out on the Bass Pro Shop pyramid? Oh my God, the Bass Pro Shop pyramid. I forgot the men can be this goddamn dumb.
Cruisers, today's episode, Bass Pro Shop's pyramid tour and review.
In the middle of Memphis, Tennessee, right where the highway hits downtown, they have the Memphis Bass Pro Shop pyramid. There was like this 30-year effort that they sunk like $2 trillion into, damn near like fucking like bankrupted. Like, you know, I mean, it bankrupted nobody. Bass Pro Shops is rich, and so like.
We
yeah,
are going to have so much
fun so yeah, as you come in like from out of town on the bridge, you see this fucking pyramid, the size of the pyramid in the Gaza Strip. Or not the Gaza Strip, but the Gaza Pyramids. Excuse me, not the Gaza Strip, excuse me, but just the Gaza Pyramids. And like, but it's an American bastion to pro shops. You know, so it's a Bass Pro. It's American bastion to Bass Pro Shops. This is what we spend our money on. This is why we cap the HMO executive. Like, this is what we choose to spend our money on instead of taking care of our people. It's really fucking weird. I kind of want to burn the Bass Pro Shop pyramid, and on top of it is sat there unused for 30 years. They kept trying to get it to be something, and it's just this giant eyesore with LED lights that constantly go out. It costs the owner millions and millions of dollars to replace all the time. All this shit that, you know, and they tried to make it an amphitheater, but nobody can sing inside of a pyramid because the sound just bounces perfectly. They couldn't make it into an amphitheater or a fucking like a stadium or anything like that because the sound bounces perfectly like in a triangle triangle because it's a pyramid. So they can't do a band in there. It just echoes horribly. It goes ba-ba-dam, ba-dam, 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 like all off of itself, and all you can hear is this low roar. They're like, I heard it. They're like, I heard it on the video when they were making fun of it. The Bass Pro Shops pyramid is everything I hate about the rich white man. Kind of. It's like, come on, we got to build this thing. Who cares if we have to walk on the backs of the slaves to do it or whatever? No, just take care of your fucking people. Just take care of your people. I think that bridge looks like a piece of shit, and I think you need to fix that bridge more than you needed to make the Bass Pro Shop pyramids. The shot itself is kind of funny. You can see that you have this like swampy area that isn't doing that well, and if there's a storm or anything like that at all of this will be a flood. It'll just be a flooded. And there's all this other stuff that needs to be done to take care of your fucking people, but no.
Today,
You build that wall instead. You build some Bass Pro Shop pyramid or SpaceX or whatever the fuck. And I mean, I get it. SpaceX I get. The rest of it I don't. There it is. There's the Bass Pro Shop fucking pyramid. It just blows my fucking mind. I don't know why I focus on this so much. But it's like to see this be built in post 1975 is gotta be the goddamn dumbest shit, and it failed so horribly. They can't get people to go to it. Like, it's so big that nobody wants to travel it because it's like going to it's like going to Disney World. I mean, people do want to go to it, but they couldn't keep the fervor the way that Walt Disney World kept the fervor. They couldn't do it. They tried for 20 years and they were like, no, nobody will come to our Bass Pro Shops pyramid that we dumped $1 trillion into. No, they won't, because you didn't take care of your people. You let some rich man run slipshod all over your fucking values, your morals, and your fucking economy. And you built a Bass Pro Shop pyramid instead of fixing this fucking highway or whatever. It's so goddamn dumb and sick. And yeah, this is why, if you wonder why we go crazy and we cap HMO executives, I downplay it like this guy wasn't victimized, like he wasn't innocent. He was probably innocent, you know? I don't know him. But I mean, you wonder why that shit happens? It's because you guys build Bass Pro Shop pyramids. You build drug empires. You build like military empires. You build HMOs that don't actually give us enough money to get fucking painkillers. It's just, it's insane. And so when we see you steal so you can go build your Bass Pro Shop pyramid, we kind of come kill you. It's kind of insane, but that's what I mean. If you don't believe me, go and consult Louis the 14th. I mean, we come and storm the Bastille and we fucking kill you. We don't do let them eat cake. We don't do let them eat cake. Ask Marie Antoinette. We don't let them do let them eat cake.
To offer in the
you spend the rest of your life in jail and or dead. We like full blown come and we storm the Bastille and we either chop off your head or we put you in jail. It's insane. It's one of those two things. Or worse, we ban you out of the country and we say if we ever say it's the worst thing that can happen to a fucking monarchy or a Plutarch or a fucking hegemony or whatever, is this idea that you're banned from your country. You can't go home to eat with your kids or your family anymore because you can't come home to your own country. As I recall, that's what they did to Louis the 14th and Marie Antoinette or whatever. Like they like fucking banned him out of the country for like Mary the Queen of Scots and stuff like this. They ban when you're so rich and so disconnected from your fucking people that you buy the Bass Pro Shop pyramid while they have to drive trucks around, right, to make the Bass Pro Shop pyramid. It's sort of insane. Like, and you don't take care of the highways that they drive the trucks on, so they get really mad at you and they don't come to your Bass Pro Shop fucking monstrosity piece of shit, build that wall to kick the Mexicans out bullshit ass thing that you idiot right-winger fiscal conservatives save your money to do. You save your money to starve away in the banks for years and years and years so you can buy some crazy right-wing Bass Pro Shop pyramid in Memphis, Tennessee, so we can have an American bash into our fucking idiocy.
Side. So
I'm terribly sorry.
Without any further ado,
I don't need that Bass Pro Shop monstrosity. I'm terribly sorry. They should have. I wish they made. Like, wish the Simpsons had known that this guy had done this. They would have roasted this alive. I wish the Simpsons knew about this. I don't think they did. Or this guy would have been on the Simpsons. We need to make fun of stuff like this. I think we kind of. I think they kind of did. I think they did. They did. They made fun of this on Futurama. Do you remember? It was Bender the Pharaoh, right? Bendo the Pharaoh is like, remember me! A pharaoh to remember, right? An affair to remember. They're making fun of like a bunch of stuff here. But an affair to remember, when that dude in fucking Memphis, Tennessee built the Bass Pro Shops pyramid, they did make fun of this on Futurama. I just never got the gag right away. They just kept making fun of this, of Bender's desire to fucking just like to grind the slaves' bones to dust, to get, literally that's the phraseology that they use, to the Bender's desire, to fucking the fiscal conservatives' desire to grind the slaves' bones to dust while they make the Bass Pro Shop fucking pyramid. I swear to God, we've never understood this about humanity. When humanity gets too much money, they start building the Bass Pro Shop pyramid. We don't know why. They don't believe me? Consult the Giza pyramid. We don't know why the rich men do this. We don't know. It's the worst thing about humanity. We don't know why they do this. They just do. They like get too much money off their oil war or something, right? Or their race war, and then they go fascista, stomping around, taking 20 wives, building harems and stuff, and blowing $2 trillion on some crazy island or some fucking Saudi Arabian city or Akon, you know, the Akon's island or whatever. We don't know why they do this. When they get too much money, they just build some kind of island thing for their harem and their weird sex empire and their fucking too much money or whatever. It's just really weird. We don't know why they do this. And then they have like 20 kids, and then they spawn something that they want the world to see as a testament long after they're dead. Damn it. It's almost biblical. Jesus hates this crap. I swear to God. I don't want to paraphrase Jesus, but Jesus hates this sort of crap. This is why we needed Jesus. Jesus hates this sort of crap. I swear to God, Jesus hates this sort of crap, but it still happens for some reason. We still have the pyramids of Giza. We still have Machu Picchu. We still have the Seven Wonders of the World and like Akon Island and all this. We have Akon Island for some reason. I don't know why, but we do. Is when some shit ass fucking fiscal conservative who stuffed that bank so fucking full that he can't hide from the world how rich he is anymore. He buys Taj Mahal. Don't believe me? Consult Taj Mahal, and trust me, they all want to do this. Trump wanted his wall. Piece of shit, fucking cocksucker, backstabbing, rich fucking pieces of shit, driving their country into the fucking ground so they can build that Bass Pro Shop pyramid or that fucking wall or whatever lie they've got in their fucking hearts or whatever. It's hilarious. It's biblical. It really is Sodom and Gomorrah. It's fucking insane. It like literally is. Look at Formula Rasa or remember the Cost of Concordia. That's like basically the greatest video ever made. The Cost of Concordia is like really is like the funniest, like best fucking internet video ever made. It got 21 million views, but it stands on its own fucking value and stuff. It's insane. So this ship captain decides that he has to blow his horn at 4:30 in the morning to wake up the poor, hapless Italian towns that live on the coast of Italy, and all these rich ass fucking trillionaire, billionaire, fucking piece of shit ship captains that fly for or that sail for Carnival and all this stuff, right? They all decide that when it's the summer, they need to blast these Italian fucking towns at 4:30 in the morning with their wah wah from the boats or whatever. They go wah wah, and so this idiot fucking captain takes it was $2 billion or something like that. I think it was like, or no, I don't know what the cost of Concordia was, but it was like 500 billion or something like that. It was insane. And so he decides that he needs to fucking buzz the nearby Italian town with his rich ass boat, and the locals hate this shit. The media knows that the locals hate this shit. The locals hate this shit, and they hate the rich people who blast their town with their loud horns all the time, like from their fucking Carnival ships that they build out of their $1 billion fucking money that they steal from taxes or wherever rich people get their fucking money from, like starving us with like pharmaceuticals or whatever it is they do. Carnival, right? And so the city captain crashes the Concordia, which is like a $500 billion ship with 3 cities, 5 malls, and and all this. And so internet historian does this whole drama about why men need to do this, but they do. Men get too much money together and they decide to build something stupid for their wife or so that people will remember them after they're dead. It's just something stupid the fiscal conservatives have to do when they get their hands on too much money. And so then, in the cost of Concordia is very clear. It's very clear. In a perfect world, these pieces of shit idiots wouldn't exist.
Use NordVPN.
But they do.
All officers run to the bridge. Technical crews run down to assess.
It's like he has to buzz the town so he can pull the horn and go wow. And of course he runs the $500 billion ship on. I'm not kidding. It was like $500 billion. He like crashes the $500 billion ships on the rocks. And so then like over this hour-long video, you begin to understand how much money was actually sunk into this terrible thing that these rich people fucking do. And you wonder why they cap HMO executives. It's because of shit like this. It's the way that you treat us. It's no one's surprised. No one is surprised when that stuff happens. No one is surprised because they build Bass Pro Shops. They build $2 trillion cities that fail and sink into the fucking ocean. They buy $2 trillion worth of government cheese and they fucking let it rot in underground fucking Fort Knox, forts and stuff underneath the mountain, like NORAD and shit like this. Like NORAD, like we know NORAD in Colorado, right? This is what they do. They build large underground bunkers and they fill them with cheese that rots inside of a year and a half so that we just lose $2 trillion. We can't write that off. We can't sell the cheese. We can't do anything like that. The shit just rotted. and we didn't eat it either. So, and then this is what the rich people do. This is what they do to the world. You must know. Do you see? This is what the Elons do. You love your Elons because you're a fiscal conservative. You like it when the rich people stuff banks full of money while the people starve in the fucking streets of Trank. You know what I'm saying? You love it, on Trank. You love it when people starve in the fucking streets on Trank because that means your bank account's fatter.
Arab Emirates
You got their resources.
still managed to successfully invest their
like I'm serious.
real money into developing
And so yeah, as they build their fucking Ferris as they build their fucking Ferris wheels, we all kind of stare up there at this thing that they build, and we're like, oh my god, this is what you spent our fucking tax money on. We didn't have an option. They just did it.
enough projects that
Just like nuclear bomb in World War II, we didn't have an option. They just did it. The same thing. Same with Enola Gay and all this. We did not have an option with that one. The public didn't have an option. They just dropped that bomb without our goddamn permission. Just like this Ferris wheel. Just like this goddamn crazy fucking this fucking Formula Rossa fucking like $1 billion roller coaster that's the size of a goddamn fucking stadium. This is what the rich people do to the world, while the poor people are crawling on their knees through the streets, dying like that scene in Breaking Bad when the assassins are crawling through the fucking village on De Los Muertos with some kind of crazy cartel fucking like fucking feud and all this, and the people are dying and hungry and starving in the fucking streets while they do this. It's so insane. And they're like stealing in the bazaar to get their daily meal and shit so they don't starve to death. And this is what these people do with the money while those people starve in the bazaars. It's insane. It's the most based fucked up shit. It would be okay in the 1700s, but it's not okay in the 2100s. We know better. We stormed the Bastille and in full blown. I forget what happened to Louis XIV, but we could do that too. Shall we do what happens to Louis XIV? Oversimplified. We'll do. Here's another one of the greatest videos ever made. Is Oversimplified doing Louis XIV, right? Louis, you curse the world with your bougie, unrealistic, illogical fucking bullshit that nobody could afford. Your bougie, sound familiar? Your bougie bullshit that nobody could actually afford. This one's so good. I love the Oversimplified of Louis XIV. He was such a goddamn richer. He was like, okay, imagine if Richie Rich and Scrooge McDuck fucked and had a big butt baby, and the butt baby grew to go Super Saiyan 100 times, something like that. That was Louis the 14th.
Made possible by NordVPN.
Imagine Trump times 10, and you have Louis the 14th, worst person in history, maybe short of Hitler.
Get protected by clicking
Kidding, but I mean, like, literally, he was so bad.
the link below and get an amazing
Some people really loved him.
5% off. That's only $2.99 per month.
I mean, you know, does it sound familiar? Some people really loved him. It sound familiar?
With an additional
I guess, you know, it takes all kinds, right? Because some people really loved him for some reason.
month free for a limited
Just like Trump.
time. Also, new French
For some
Revolution
reason,
merch-
these poor people from the South really loved Trump for some fucking stupid... Well, we all know why. It's because the education system sucks in the rural South. We all know it. So, yeah, we have dumb people. We got a dumb people problem. So, yeah, dumb people from the South really love Trump for some reason while he makes it rain or whatever. Like, it's so opposite of their culture. It's so insane. If he were to try and go and eat at a KFC the way that what's his name tried to do, his running mate did, they would get laughed out of it. They would get laughed out of that place. Trump has never touched his own butthole. He's only ever had servants, like, you know, wipe his own butt. You know, he doesn't wipe his own butt, and he hasn't. He's had a bidet since he was born. That man is not anything like you.
Available now.
He's more like Louis the 14th. He grew up with gold plates and gold glasses and shit like this, and you know, and expensive, you know, expensive shit and lifestyles of the rich and famous. This man doesn't represent you or anybody that comes from any place where you come from. This man does not represent you.
The store, including King Louis and Marie Antoinette character pins, complete with detachable
It's Trump and Melania.
heads, just like the real thing.
It's Trump and Melania, era 1450 or whatever this was. What I mean, it was Magna Carta age. I forget when this was. Was it 1730? I forget when this is. It's like 1730, I think, something like that.
So I said to the Marquis de la Fufayette, "What do you think I am? Some dirty peasant? I've never worked a day in my life."
Stupid peasants.
That Marie Antoinette sure is pretty. Sure is. Wouldn't want to be Prince Louis, though. That's going to be a lot of responsibility when he becomes king, especially since France is in financial ruin. Quite. Thank you one and all for attending the
Especially since America is in financial ruin. Let's build a wall.
royal marriage of my grandson, the
Fucking jackass rich people killing us.
future king of
I'm
France.
sorry, I won't say it any other goddamn way. That's what it actually is. Don't get it twisted. Vote for your rich man more. Yeah, as he steals your money, you fucking idiots.
To the Archduchess of Austria. Now for the very awkward yet historically accurate part of the ceremony, where we all watch them get into bed together.
Where we all watch them get into bed together because we're sickos and we're rich. Let's consummate. These fucking freaks. This is how rich people actually live. It's so weird and dumb because their kids are so nepotistic that they have to watch the fucking the consummation night to make sure that she had the right baby with the right man. Yeah, I'm dead serious. That's how much money these nepo babies actually are worth. That they witness the consummation night to make sure that she slept with him. It's insane. It's just.
All right, now
Rich people are so shitty. I can't stand rich people. The shit that they do, the way they do things.
that's out of the way. Let's leave the royal couple to it. You better give us an heir, you fat, ill-bred boy.
You fat ill-bred boy.
Nighty-night. That's gonna be a lot of responsibility. France is in financial ruin. You fat, ill-bred boy. Quite. That's gonna be a lot of responsibility. France is in financial ruin.
Vance is a financial ruin. Let's spend some money. Fake news. Fake news. I got banned off Twitter. Rah! Wall. We're gonna buy a wall.
Oh, great. He's a freaking weirdo.
Yeah. And a liar and a tax cheat and a thief
France,
and a
the most
criminal.
prosperous, culture.
Slept with a porn star, around on his wife, lied about God, lied about being a Christian.
And
You know, like all these assholes.
nation in the world, as it had been.
They're all like this. You act like Trump's new, like we've never seen somebody like this before. But no, we've been plagued with buttholes like him since the dawn of time.
For centuries.
They look like this. Look, it's Trump from the era 1730. They all look like this.
An exquisite social culture with the king and the upper classes throwing
Aww.
crazy parties every night, enjoying high living and fine dining. Who cares that they were
The theory was cocaine. Like cocaine was really the theory, but we don't know.
only able to do so off the backs of the hard-working, starving poor? What are they gonna do? Revolt? They're only 80% of the population. No. Life in France is great. What's that, France? You want to go to war with Britain and increase your power? Go for it, little buddy. You do you. And now you're in severe financial
And
debt.
now you
What's
lost.
that, France? You want to go to war with Britain and increase your power?
Oh, you want a war? Those cost money. What money? You powder your butthole with a bidet. What money? We buy you bidets all the time. What are you talking about?
Go for it, little buddy.
We don't have any money for a war.
Do you. And you lost.
And you lost. And now
Now you're in
we were in a quagmire for 20 years and we sunk a bunch of billions of dollars into it. In the graveyard of nations. It's like literally there was a warning when we went in. Every diplomat in history like shrugs and sighs at America's stupidity and George Bush's goddamn like terrible 9/11 sin. And they're like, you know what they call Afghanistan, right? The graveyard of nations. And George Bush is like, WMDs and terrorists. WMDs and terrorists today, now. WMDs and terrorists. And it is just,
your financial debt. We have no money. What do
we have
do?
no money, and then you put us into a 20-year war. Great.
Should we stop
Good job.
partying? Heck no.
Oh, good. Bank crisis. Is that all your friends stealing from us? With friends like your friends, who needs Nazis? Thanks for the bank crisis, rich people.
Party harder. That's
I'm just kidding.
okay. The peasantry will pick up the slack.
I like talking like South Park, like I can blame all rich people for this. No, it's stupidity.
They were created by God to do all the work, and you were created to reap all the benefits.
They just sit there, do cocaine, like do bougie shit, and
Party hard.
the party like Pete Diddler. Yeah.
That's just how society works, and we've
I was a functional drug addict for about 13 years of my life, but I didn't ever live like this. No. I would say there was times when we had enough money to get too drunk and too stoned, but it was never like, hold on, I gotta crash my fucking like McLaren into the wall like that piece of shit streamer. I can't even think of his fucking name.
all just accepted it for centuries. Why? Why what? Why do the nobility get to
We
do
never, it's not that we didn't have it like that. We just aren't stupid.
and stuff just because they
Some of us have had money in my crew, even, and we're just not stupid, you know?
were born into it, and the rest of us schmucks just have to accept that?
Yeah, they're born into it. We have to accept that.
Hell, why do we even need a king? Who decided that? It all just seems very unfair and
Yeah, who decided that we needed one dude above all else?
And I, for one,
All tribes, no chiefs, bitch.
am starting to question it. Wow, that's very enlightened of you. And so began the Age of Enlightenment. Great philosophical thinkers across France and beyond began to question whether this beautiful nation was really all that beautiful.
If there's a rich person in charge.
After all, hey Prince Louis, bad news. Your grandpop died of smallpox this morning, which means good news, you're now the king. So just to sum up, France is in severe financial debt, and the angry populace are beginning to question how necessary you are. But hey, I believe in you, champ. You got this. Maybe. Oh no!
Oh
Prince Louis
no!
Capet became
You got this, Trump.
King Louis XVI In May 1774, he was a notoriously weak man, and he knew it.
He was a notoriously weak man, slept around with the porn stars and such.
He barely had the wisdom to rule a nation.
Barely had the wisdom to read the Constitution, much less deal with North American, Asiatic, fucking North American trade alliances or anything like that. I think he had a weakness with spelling the word coffee.
Nation, never mind one in crisis, and he was easily manipulated by those around him. One of his first acts was to
I can't see Louis the 14th without seeing Trump. You understand? I don't really see the fucking difference. I actually don't. I don't see a fucking difference here, really. Maybe 300 years. That's about it.
try to get revenge on
I
the
don't see a fucking difference.
British by financing their
What's the
American
difference? They both did basically the same things.
colonies' revolution.
They didn't do the same things.
Hey, we're an independent nation now. That was real swell of you, Louis. Couldn't have done
They
it
lived
without
the
you.
same
Glad
sort
I
of
could help.
lives.
So hey, about all that money we lent you, when can we get that back?
Hey, that $1 billion that your daddy gave you, what happened to that?
Yep. You're a great guy. I'll never forget what you've done for us. Real
Yeah.
glad I could help, friend, but about that money, gotta go now, chump.
No, see ya. Yeah, and this is what America does, too.
Best of luck to you.
Yeah, see ya, buddy. No.
Now France was in even more debt.
Oh, no.
France is poor, suffering under the strain of economic ruin, watched as the nobility continued to live as though nothing was wrong. In
Sound familiar?
particular, they grew increasingly
Fox's Torgo's executive powder.
distinct.
Torgo's executive powder. I love the implication in this. Torgo's executive powder, bitch. We all know what it means. Grind the bones of the executive and sell it in a can in the grocery stores. Torgo's executive powder. Easy with that toy artillery. Torgo's powder is deadly but unstable. Can they sue for liability? Certainly not. Used as much as you are able. Coolio. Torgo's executive powder is so fucking good. If you want to know how I feel about them, this is it. Am I surprised? No. Am I surprised in the news recently? No.
of the Queen, Marie Antoinette, as she continued to
Yeah, the hatred isn't truly there. I would never harm these people. They're humans with wives and children, husbands. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they do. I don't care how much money they have or what their sins are. I'm not God. It's not my place to judge them or whatever. I just treat them with disdain because I don't like them.
spend all of France's money.
That dress costs more than the town that she grew up in.
On her own
That
luxurious
is sinful.
lifestyle and
Yeah, the Taj Mahal stuff, it's just sinful.
fashion. While the peasants were breaking their backs in the fields, she was walking around like, hey, my hair is about. I'm not making that up. Her hair really was about. And her lavish spending earned her the nickname Madame Deficit. And speaking of the Queen, there
Hey, my hair is a boat.
was also a long-standing scandal around the nickname. I'm not making that up. Her hair really was about. And her lavish
What?
spending earned her the nickname Madame Deficit. And speaking of the Queen, there was also a long-standing scandal around the fact that the king took a very long time to boink her, and the working classes of Paris began ridiculing the royal couple with lewd pamphlets depicting the Queen as a court thought, and the king as a wuss, unable to fulfill his marital duty. Respect for the monarchy was at an all-time low, as France's finances were spiraling out of control, and the king and his aides really only had one solution to the crisis: tax the poor. Tax the poor.
The rich people all hate each other because they're stuck with each other. They don't hang out with anybody else. accept each other, right? So they're all inbred. They all hate each other because they're stuck with each other because they all have a very small society. I'm talking the smallest society there is, kind of. It's kind of funny. And so they all hate each other secretly, and they all sleep around on each other like Trump did with the porn star. And they all treat each other like garbage because they have such a tiny community that they can't stand each other. And they're always inbred, and it's weird. I really don't like a lot of what the things that you see out of rich culture.
We could do a sexy calendar shoot. Tax the poor.
Tax the poor, yeah.
So it was. The poor, who were already struggling to make ends meet, found themselves being taxed from every direction. Hey, I'm the royal tax collector. Looks like you've yet to pay your income tax, head tax. By the way, how many windows you got in that house of yours?
Window tax.
3? Oof, yep. There's gonna be a tax for that. Hey, your local priest here. Have you paid your church tithe yet? Well, at least this one is going to the good work of God. Sure. God. I think this year, God wants me to buy a new swimming pool. Hey, private tax collector here.
I think this year, God wants me to buy a new swimming pool. Remember, God wanted me to sell you this crypto. Oh my God, listening to these bougie pieces of shit destroy the world as they ride in on a chocolate fountain of fondue or whatever. Tiramisu.
And I brought some goons with me. Just a few quick questions. How much salt did you buy this year? About 7 kilos, I think? Yep. Okay, there's gonna be a tax for that. Oh. What's...
You never can truly hate the rich unless you've been one before. Oh, God.
What's that over there? And that's extra salt I held over from last year's.
I really hate rich people.
So I wouldn't have to buy as much this year. Oh, yeah, there's a tax for that.
There's a tax for that, sorry. I'll just take it all.
What are you doing with all this salt? Well,
it's mine.
Obviously cooking. On the table. Yep. And preserving fish and meat. Oh no. Yep. And there's a tax for that. Hey, how old is he? He's 9. And so he's purchased his...
You want to tax the salt?
Year, right? What? No, he's 9. Uh-oh. Sorry, little Timmy. Looks like I'm gonna have to tax you for that. Yep. Salty. There's gonna be a tax for that. And
there's gonna be a tax for that. Yep, his tears are salt.
That's not all. A huge portion of the peasants' harvest had to be given up. And there was also the labor tax.
This is what will happen to us until we fix it.
Where peasants were required to work a certain number of days for their local lord without pay. Obviously, people weren't too happy with these taxation policies, and the aggressive nature of these private tax farmers sometimes even escalated to violence. In particular, though, the people really hated how inconsistent the taxation rules were across the nation, and also the fact that the first 2 estates often had to pay very little, if any tax at all. And so, the anger continued.
Oh, you dirty bastards. I pay more taxes than Trump. And this is the truth. It's the God's honest truth. You pay more taxes than Trump.
France had a population that was just about...
I pay more taxes than Jeff Bezos.
Ready to explode. What could push them over the edge? How about a touch of natural disaster? A series of harsh summers and winters left the peasants' harvests in ruin, meaning they had no food or money, and the cost of bread skyrocketed. Of course, the upper classes had massive stocks of grain.
Sound familiar?
So they were virtually untouched by this new crisis. But now the poor really were starving, and they began to riot. Women took to the streets, bakeries were raided, and bakers suspected of keeping bread for themselves.
Women took to the streets and were like, do you have bread? I must feed my family. I'm here to take the bread.
Were sometimes...
And women, you understand?
Even hanged. Wow.
Yep.
This is really getting out of control.
Yeah, you just keep spending money and doing nothing.
Your Majesty, we need some decisive action. You need to step up and lead us. What will you do? Okay, I've got this. I know. I'll summon the Estates General, and they'll decide what to do. You really are a fat, ill-bred boy. The Estates General was the closest thing France had to a government, apart from the king. It was a purely advisory body, and was rarely summoned. In fact, it hadn't been summoned for 175 years.
175 years.
But with France in a severe crisis, the king felt the time was right to call on the government to help. The Estates General was made up of representatives from the 3 estates, that is, the clergy, the nobility, and everybody else.
The clergy, the nobility, and everybody else. And we're the third estate, guys. This is who we are to them. There's the clergy who bosses them around because they're all God-fearing people. Almost all. Or Lucifer, depending on who they are. Yep. And then there's us, the third estate, who isn't the clergy and isn't the monarchy, you know, or the whatever you want to call it, the leadership.
From the 3 estates, that is
The rich people. So yeah, we're the third estate, and this is the pyramid of classism. It's not too fun.
the clergy, the nobility, and everybody else.
And everybody else, right? And there's some other stuff he
From
says
the
here.
3 estates, that is
And
the
everybody, the clergy, the nobility, and everybody else. The middle class, the urban poor, the peasantry, the wealthy business owners, and lawyers.
else. Okay, thanks for coming, everyone. The first order of business is regarding the clergy and nobility. You all get brand new Porsches.
You all get a new car. Sound familiar?
You get a Porsche, and you get a Porsche, and
You get a Porsche.
you get a Porsche.
Oh my God, fucking
Everybody
Oprah.
gets a Porsche. And now into the second order of business. France is completely out of money. Like It's
It's out.
never been this bad before.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyone got any ideas? How about we all get Lamborghinis next time? The king decided that in order to make a decision, they had to come up with a vote.
Oh, look, it's 214,000 gil. Oh, yeah. Metro Engits. Oh, yeah, I love getting gil. It's like my favorite currency. It really is the best currency. Yeah, 54,000 gil. Oh, yeah, 457,000 gil. Oh, my God, I just got an MMO boner, a raging MMO boner for that 267,000 gil that I just looted from my D-box. Yes.
Voting system. Okay, the clergy. You have a population of 130,000.
Oh, my God, does it keep going? If it does, I'm gonna lose it. Ah, no, that was it. It's okay, though.
You'll get 1 vote.
I want more.
The nobility.
More money to pay for stupid things that I need that I don't want to pay for.
You have a population of 350,000. So you'll also get 1 vote.
One
and
vote.
the third estate. You have a population of 27 million people
You don't get any vote.
and make up 98% of the population.
You don't get to say shit.
Very impressive. You'll get
1 vote.
1 vote. The third estate were obviously pretty unhappy with this system because they kept on finding that
Everybody looks like pissed off South Park people.
this would happen. We propose to raise taxes on the third estate. All in favor? All opposed? 2 to 1.
2 to 1.
Taxes will be raised
And this is the electoral commission.
on the third estate. We propose a motion that says the first 2 estates are a
Are a bunch of poo-poo heads and we kill you.
bunch of poo-poo heads. All in favor? All
Yeah.
opposed?
Everybody here except you. And they're like, oh wait, they are everybody else but us.
Opposed?
Yeah.
2 to 1.
2 to 1.
It's official. We are not poo-poo heads. The third estate realized that any attempt at reform would be outvoted by the 2 upper
But you are shitheads though.
estates, and they thought that was kind of lame. So they decided that since they were 98% of the population, they could go off to form their own government, make their own laws, and take over the running of the country. And so, the National Assembly was born. The third estate was now in control, and there was nothing the king could do to stop. Haha! I've locked you all out of your building. What are you gonna do about it? We'll probably go find a different building that isn't locked. Ow, no! The National Assembly did find another unlocked building, just down the road, an indoor tennis court. Where on the 20th of June, 1789, they all took the tennis...
Oh my God.
Will the king could do to stop... Haha! I've locked you all out of your building. What are you gonna do about it? We'll probably go find a different building that isn't locked.
Yeah.
Ow, no! The National Assembly did...
These rich people are so dumb.
Isn't locked. Ow, no! The National Assembly did find another unlocked building, just down the road, an indoor tennis
They
court.
did.
were on the 20th of June, 1789.
I can't believe they called this the tennis court oath. I mean, it's fitting. I mean, this is what the rich people do. Instead of taking care of people, they buy tennis courts.
They all took
tennis courts.
The tennis court oath, pledging
and so yeah, they did
to continue meeting until the king finally gave in to their demands for more equality and economic reform. This new National Assembly included many of the most educated members of the Third Estate, including two young lawyers by the names of Maximilien Robespierre and Georges Danton. Some members of the first two estates even joined their cause. Some of these men formed a radical new political party called the Jacobin Club and quickly became...
Get it? Jack off in the club. Jack off club.
Became leading figures. While many members of the Third Estate simply wanted more equality, a growing number in this Jacobin faction would begin calling for something even crazier: the removal of the king.
No girls allowed. And this is somebody in the background making a fucking statement, and I love it too. There's nothing more fucking sexist than this shit.
Entirely.
This is the good old boy club.
And this is where
they aren't necessarily the leadership, but they're there.
Fear began to take hold. With such a volatile situation developing, everyone was afraid of something. The king feared his position was under threat, and he called in the military to take position around Paris. The Third Estate heard rumor of the gathering military force, and they feared the king was planning to round them up and arrest them.
Are you fucking with us? Are you fucking with us? Are you planning to throw us all in jail? You started talking about mass deportations. Are you fucking with us? Are you real? Because if you're real, we'll show you a mass deportation.
Maybe he'd even execute them. It also didn't help that the king had just dismissed France's popular finance minister, who had been trying to make reforms himself.
Yeah, and then they fire everybody who's trying to help, and they hire idiots to run HUD and our military, who have never held office before.
It seemed the king was done negotiating. Fear, left unchecked, often
we hate what these people do. They throw bombs wherever they go.
Over into anger, and anger.
I don't know what you could say about these people except the bourgeoisie. It's that was the word they have for them in the France, and that's what I call these people too, like Trump. Bourgeoisie. That's an easy enough word. They're the people who have lived high off the hog all of their lives and have no possible way to relate to our struggles in any way or form. They grew up with the bidet up their fucking ass and servants. They don't give a shit about somebody tranked out on the fucking streets, like your cousin tranked out on the streets. They don't care about that. They only care about that bidet up their fucking ass.
With violence, the angry people of Paris, after centuries of cruel inequality, harsh oppression, even starvation, fearful of having their new movement for reform demolished so soon, decided that it was now or never to take action. Screw reform. They decided they'd do one better. How about revolution? The people of Paris, believing the French military was preparing to attack, decided...
Pay attention to this lesson. The people of Paris, believing that the French military was about to attack them. See it?
They should arm themselves. The National Assembly announced the creation of a bourgeois militia, the National Guard, and immediately, many troops from the
He didn't know how to say it. Bourgeois.
French military defected over to the revolutionary side. In the early hours of July 14th, 1789, a large crowd stormed and raided the Hôtel des Invalides, a military hospital where they were able to secure a large number of rifles. The bad news was they weren't able to find any gunpowder for their new weapons. The good news was
they all have clubs now.
They knew exactly where to get some.
Yeah.
A prison fortress and a symbol of royal tyranny towering over
Yeah. Your prison industrial complex, they have guns. Oh, we're the public, and the military took the guns away from us, and they're trying to treat us like shit. Well, we know who has guns. Prison wardens, right? How many prisons in the U.S.? During the prison industrial complex that the rich subjected us to over the last 100 years? 55,000. Or whatever it is, wasn't it? Many prisons, state prisons, federals. So 330. Texas has the most prisons. Look, there's 313 prisons in Texas. So good. Yeah, the graph's showing the 361,000 people that are currently in prison right now, which is insane. Yeah, local jails. Yeah, it's about, 1 million in our state prisons, about 550 in our local jails, and about 208,000 in our federal prisons and jails. That's only about 2 million of the 750 million Americans, It's not that big of a number. But somebody who has been affected by this, and I'm one of them. And it's terrible. Pretrial detention, pretrial policies, myths about mass incarceration, the overcriminalization of drug use, the use of private prisons, and low-paid or unpaid prison labor among the most contentious issues in the criminal legal system today because they inspire moral outrage. But they do not answer the question of why most people are incarcerated or how we can dramatically and safely reduce our use of confinement. So,
Paris, the Bastille. Mid-morning, the crowd gathered
we all know where we can find guns. It's prison.
around the Bastille and demanded that the man in charge, Governor Delaunay, surrender.
They built a lot of those. So, hey, if you're ever trying to fuel a fucking revolution in a country where you have been disarmed, and no, I'm not trying to do some weird, scary shit or anything like that, try to take my government down or anything like that. I'm just pointing out something. If you're ever in need of guns and the military disarms you, well, you know where you can find guns. Prisons. Lots of them. Lots of guns in the prisons. In the 55,000 prisons that they built in this country. Guns. Ammo. A lot of it. So if you ever can't fight the government because the government's taking away the guns, the prisons are a safe bet. Go liberate your brother, too, while you're out, while you're there. Get your homie out of prison, too.
Prison and hand over the gunpowder.
Some of those people need to be there for, like, murder and rape and stuff. But I don't know. It's kind of all hands on deck right now. It's sort of fucked up. It's sort of all hands on deck a little bit. It's to say that the 2 million of the 750 million Americans should be incarcerated at any given time is just insane. That's insane. That's, it is only 1/700th, but I mean, that is not too good.
Obviously, Governor Delaunay was like, no way. So he stalled for time by inviting a few members of the crowd in for negotiations. The crowd, still waiting outside, quickly became impatient, and before long, they stormed the
Nah, we're just gonna kill you.
fortress, taking on the French troops in...
You've been stealing the money for far too fucking long, and we're just gonna fucking kill you. There's no time to talk to you anymore. Talking is what got us into this fucking mess in the first place. Live has a very good song about this called White Lies, I think it is, something like that. And it's like, what is all this talking got us, baby? What is all this talking got us, baby? Where's all this talking got us, baby? He just keeps asking it at the end, and I really actually kind of really wonder that too. Where is all this talking got us?
Side. Your Majesty, we've received word
Now, I
that
don't
people have
promote
surrounded the
violence at
Bastille.
all. I'm not talking about violence as another solution. I'm saying that I don't believe we need to talk anymore. We can just close our mouths and be like, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. Like, civil disobedience. What happened here? You muted for no
The crowd is
reason.
now headed away from the Bastille. You see? What did I tell you? Clearly, Governor Delaunay has defeated them and has them on the run. No need to worry. Your Majesty, isn't that Governor Delaunay's head on a pike? Well, clearly, Governor Delaunay has taken on the
Cafefe.
form of a bodiless pike-head
Cafefe.
deity, and the people are so enamored with him, they're parading him around the city. No
Cafefe. No, you're just stupid. You're just stupid.
need to worry at all. When the National Assembly heard about the violence that had taken place, they had
There's Jack crashing into the fucking wall with his McLaren.
two options. Either one, they denounce it and try to
Yo, I just crashed my McLaren. Yo.
carry on the revolution using peaceful means, or two, they say, damn, you stuck his head on a pike? That's pretty hardcore. And we love it. Incidentally, they went with option number two. Some
Yeah,
believe this reaction paved the way for the utter violence and bloodshed that would become the legacy of the French Revolution. Its widespread acceptance during
Yeah, when suddenly it was just okay to just kill your opponent, you know, and it's not okay, really. Well, really, the guillotine.
the Revolution is also largely credited to the writings of a certain Jean-Paul Marat,
Yeah.
a man of science with a horrible skin condition that kept him confined to a bathtub. He began writing a radical
Confined to a bathtub.
newspaper he affectionately named The Friend of the People. Citizens of France, be very afraid. Given the chance, the king and the nobility won't hesitate to massacre us all. The solution is simple. Execute them. Kill every last one of them. Cut off 1,000
No, don't
heads.
do this.
And if that's not enough, cut off 1,000 more.
It's not funny.
Oh, hey, Mr. Squeaky. What are you doing down there? You're so cute. Aw, I love you too, Mr. Squeaky. Mwah. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah.
It's true.
Killed them all. It became one of the most popular publications in Paris during the Revolution and succeeded in spreading ever-increasing fear and anger among the people. In August, leaders of the National Assembly, with help from a certain Thomas Jefferson,
Are you gonna kill us, you know?
adopted the Declaration
Are you gonna mass deport us? I mean, you stole the money.
of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, an incredible document that guaranteed liberty and equal rights to all men. And when I say men, I mean men.
I mean,
Despite its
men.
glaring shortcomings
Yeah.
in gender equality, the massively influential declaration would go on to inspire the struggle for liberty and equality across the planet for centuries. However, back in France, the vast majority of the people weren't really so concerned with enlightened ideas of equality as much as they were concerned with the fact that they were still starving. Bread was still expensive as hell, and
They have real problems to deal with. Their kids are fucking like suffering and shit, and the women get furious when the rich people act like this. The women get out on the streets.
to come by. The people felt that one reason nothing had been done yet about the crisis was because the king simply couldn't see the problem. He lived in Versailles, a full 20 kilometers southwest of Paris, and as a result, lived in comfort, separated from his dirty, stinking subjects. On October 5th, a crowd of women, 7,000 strong, decided they'd do something
7,000
unprecedented.
strong.
They decided they'd remove that separation
Let's get him, girls.
and confront the king directly. The
Yeah,
women
we're gonna scream at him.
marched all the way to the king's palace in Versailles. Along the way, the crowd
Yeah, don't piss off the third estate, especially not the women, the Karens. Do not piss off the Karens. They will full-blown blast through your police, your military. They control your kids. They control your fucking households. The women are the real strong force on this in this country. Don't ever get it fucking twisted. The women have the real power in this country. They control the social estate. They do. They control your social power. They control your households. They control your kids' welfare. The women have the true power in this goddamn country. Don't you ever get it fucking twisted. RESPECT. It was a good lesson. It was good that she taught it to us because we needed this. Or the women stormed the Versailles and they'd chop off your fucking nuts.
continued to grow into the tens of thousands, and when they arrived, they demanded an audience with the king.
Yeah, there's 10,000 screaming women here to fucking kill you. Trump.
What are those things outside the palace? They're
Yeah, they're poor people. Yeah, women. Yeah, mostly poor people, women from the lower class. They're here to kill you.
poor people, Your Majesty. That's poor people? They say they're hungry. Hungry? Then let
She's
them
got a
eat cake.
parrot on her cage on her head because she did stuff like that.
Wow. See,
Made of like
exact
pure silver and stuff like that.
BS that led to this whole mess in the first place. You're so out of touch. They're writhing around in the filth, breaking their back to barely scrape by, and they come to you demanding just the basic ability to feed themselves, and you think a slice of cake will sort them out? Well, then let them eat Taco Bell Crunchwrap Supreme. Wow. They're not that desperate. Members of the crowd actually managed to break into the palace with the intention of killing the queen, who narrowly escaped through a secret passage in her bedroom. The enraged mob killed several members of the royal guard and
Remember, this is what we actually do to them.
raised their heads on pikes, which, if you haven't noticed yet, is something they were quite fond of doing. The
Yeah, I don't really like that.
king had no choice but to come out and talk to the crowd. He
which is something they were fond of doing.
agreed to accept his new position, sharing power with the revolutionary government, and to return to Paris with the crowd, removing the separation between king and subject.
Yeah, that's all we want. We want you to live with us and see and pray with us and kneel with us and suffer with us and work with us and see the ravages of your poor decisions and your fucked up prison industrial complex and your fucked up drug policy and your idiocy around 9/11 and your fucking Patriot Act and your right-wing fucking fervor around I'll just leave it there. I'll just leave that. I promise I wouldn't like attack the other side just blatantly anymore. I need a reason.
King Louis had a problem with people constantly raiding his palace, but one thing he didn't have a problem with was people raiding his computer, because he used NordVPN. If, like me, you don't like hackers stealing your data, password, bank deets, and girlfriend, then you need to check out NordVPN. With over 5,000 servers in 60 countries, it allows you to surf the net anonymously and safely with no personal data logging. It's super easy to use. You can take a trip to a server in Japan with just a click of a button. And while you're there, why not check out some sweet Japanese Netflix? Or maybe you want to watch a certain oversimplified video that for some reason has been blocked in your country. Well, with NordVPN, you can. NordVPN gives you access to super fast servers and much more. And if you're not happy with it, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Get NordVPN now by clicking the link below, nordvpn.com/oversimplified, and get an amazing 75% off. That's only $2.99 per month with an additional month free for a limited time. And you'll also be helping to support my channel. So again, that's nordvpn.com/oversimplified. King Louis and his family were now in the Tuileries.
Oh no, I can't start this. It's 3:20 in the morning. I'll do it in the morning. I'm going to bed, guys. It is 3:20 in the morning. I stayed up way too late on a Thursday night. I didn't mean to actually. Oh yeah, hey, tomorrow is supposed to be a warm day tomorrow or something. I don't know. Anyways, we go back to my website and I say, I am Skycatlive. I'm a full-time variety gamer. I was happy to record this 14-hour session, 14-hour and 6-minute session, and this session is ending here. I am Skycatlive. Come to skycat.live. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day, every day. Put me on in the background. Click on the cat space to donate. Come to the Twitch or the YouTube. Thank you so much for your time and hanging out with me today, and all the likes, subs, and follows. And I want to acknowledge Fresh Finn and Glorbis and all the people that have been giving me money lately. Thank you so much. And number two. And I want to say thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. You're the best in my community. And I am going to leave the video here with a reminder that I have thousands of videos on my YouTube channel. You should come watch. My YouTube channel. You should come watch. I have thousands of videos on my YouTube channel, and while it's hard to get hits, I don't think it'll always be like that. And so you guys have a wonderful day. I will be back tomorrow, and I love you guys. Thank you so much, and that'll conclude this video.